Our story continues. 4 more days passed in Partha, days in which Odyssean became ever more comfortable with his surroundings. Knaak remained a focus for the future, but that future stretched further ahead with each passing day. In addition to the townsfolk, others from the farmlands and smaller communities within a day's ride began filtering in. The news spread to them by those who had already been touched. Naturally, Odyssean greeted each newcomer and did what he could. Although progress was slow, at least now he had proof that what he had told them was true. In addition to Romus, nearly 24 others had manifested some signs of powers. Those signs varied wildly, from healing minor injuries or causing flowers to blossom, to a child's sudden ability to call birds to her hand. No two were exactly the same. That in itself fascinated Odyssean further, and he spent some of his time trying to decipher why what worked for one did not work for another. He suffered no repeat of the nightmare, and, with matters demanding so much of him, soon even forgot it. Meanwhile, the ranks now swelled in another unexpected manner. Partha was a trading town, and so visitors and merchants en route elsewhere would stop there on a daily basis. They could not help but be swept up in the excitement going on all around them, and many who came merely out of curiosity left touched by Odyssean. Not all did, of course, even as not all in Partha had just yet. However, the reluctant shrank in numbers with each new miracle, such as the elderly man whose daughter healed his failing vision, initially without even realizing it. Again, it was an act she could not repeat, but Odyssean could not help but think that there were many more on the threshold of joining him. Despite the monumental change going on inside them, most of the townsfolk tried to continue their normal lives. What else were they supposed to do? Crops still had to be harvested and children fed. Master Ethan freely admitted that he enjoyed his own work, especially since the death of his wife several years earlier and the departure of his 2 older sons for Knaak the season before. In fact, it was because of that enjoyment that he had to abandon his guests come the following evening. "I will be apologizing to you, good Odyssean, for my absence tonight. An old friend and fellow merchant would have me visit his caravan to show me some of his latest items. Like me, he had been touched, but also like me, well, he too is a merchant at heart."
"There is no need to apologize, Master Ethan. You've been more than generous. You've done so much."
Aye. The older man laughed.
"Oh, Odyssean, you are likely the most humble person I have ever known. I've done so much. You've merely altered forever the lives of everyone here."
Ethan left, still laughing, and with Odyssean feeling somewhat embarrassed. Lilia later sought to soothe Odyssean's feelings.
"You should be full of cheer. You're just being yourself, my love. Nothing to be ashamed about."
She kissed him.
"But it is true. You are wonderfully humble, considering the truth."
"Perhaps,"
he said, suddenly feeling restless.
"I need to walk."
"Where shall we go?"
His discomfort increasing, Odyssean replied,
"I'd like to walk alone, Lilia."
"In Partha?"
She sounded amused.
"I dare say you will not get very far, dear Odyssean, but I shall let you try. I wish you the best of luck."
He knew what she meant. The moment even one person sighted him, a crowd would form as if by magic. Still, nighttime was his best opportunity. Most people would have now returned to their homes. The inns and taverns would still be open, but Odyssean intended to avoid those areas.
"I'll just walk down the street, to the right side of the estate, then probably return right after that."
Poor Odyssean. You do not have to tell me everything you do.
Lilia gave him another, lengthier kiss.
"I wish you a relaxing excursion."
From anyone else, he would have thought such a reply hinting of mockery. But from her, Odyssean sensed only concern and love. Not for the first time did he think how fortunate he had been to find her. It was almost as if fate had planned it. With yet an even more passionate third kiss, he left her in Master Ethan's study. Odyssean was tempted to first locate his brother, but suspected that, as in previous tries, he would not find Mandel around. While everything else seemed to be coming together, Mandel and he continued to grow more distant from one another. What made the situation worse was that the few times when Odyssean might have been able to talk with his sibling, he was without exception interrupted by new supplicants. Unwilling to turn down such requests, he had let the precious chances slip away. But there's got to come a time. Mandel was not well. Odyssean felt certain of that. The younger brother was hiding something important. What it was, perhaps only Achilleos knew. But the hunter was also good at being absent when Odyssean sought to confront him. Even Cerinthia's presence at the gatherings did not seem to keep Achilleos nearby. Not for the first time. Odyssean swore to himself that all that would change as soon as possible. Somehow, he would find out the truth. For now, though, he needed to clear his own head and relax. The night air helped him almost immediately. As he reached the outer gates, Ethan's men silently saluted him. Like so many, they had experienced the awakening within, but still felt most comfortable keeping their normal routine. Fortunately, they also already knew to respect Odyssean's privacy.
I won't be long.
He told them.
As you wish, Master Odyssean. We will be here for you when you return,
said one of the guards. He had given up trying to make them or anyone else cease calling him by such a title. Better that, at least, than being declared a holy one, or the like, as some still did. He chose the least lit avenue and quickly headed into it. The darkness comforted him, its shadowy veil giving Odyssean a sense of anonymity that he truly needed at the moment. He began to think of his farm, surely either in utter disarray or in the hands of some opportunistic neighbor who had recognized the value of its soil. Odyssean hoped that at least someone had taken care of the animals properly. Faint voices warned him of someone coming from the other direction. Preferring to be alone, Odyssean turned down an even darker side street and hurried off before the others would see him. What little he could make out of the tone of the conversation indicated that they were merely two members of the Partha Guard making their rounds. But even they represented too much interaction with the townsfolk at this point. Odyssean had no idea where the new street went, but its seductive solitude was enough to keep him on it for some distance. The voices soon faded behind him. He began to relax, as not even sleep could help him do. For the first time since before the calamity in Sarum, the son of Diomedes felt like an ordinary man again. Then another voice, this one whispering, caught his attention. Odyssean looked to the left where he thought the source lay, but from his right came a second whisper. Like the first, it was just low enough to be unintelligible, but there was something about its tone, however, that raised his hackles.
Who's there?
Odyssean called.
Who's there?
From the left, the first voice began anew. Wasting no more breath, Odyssean leapt toward the sound, but his groping hands found only shadow. A third voice came from somewhere ahead. With a growl, Odyssean whirled in that direction, and once more, nothing of substance could be found. Carefully, he retreated several steps, then glanced over his shoulder. There should have been some glimpses of another street a short distance back, but Odyssean saw only darkness. Suddenly, all the voices renewed their mad muttering. Worse, now they were quickly joined by several more, all speaking in the same intense tone that set Odyssean's nerve on edge. He spun around in a circle, seeking either one of the speakers or an exit, but finding neither.
Show yourself, damn it!
He finally shouted.
Show yourself!
He tried to summon the power to his command, and failed. Trying a different tack, Odyssean specifically imagined bright illumination, the better to ferret out his stalkers, or even some great wind that would carry him away from this area. Yet these too came to nothing. Nothing. One voice suddenly seemed to come from his right by his ear. He started to turn toward it, and a thick limb from the opposing direction wrapped around his throat. Choking, Odyssean struggled to free himself from whatever had snared him. He could not even tell if it was an arm or some sort of tentacle, only that its grip was stronger than iron. As the lack of air took its toll on him, Odyssean's thoughts went to Lilia. He could only assume that this attack had to do with Malik, and so he feared that the high priest would next go after her. Yet even that concern did not give him the might to escape. Then, from out of nowhere, there came a hiss, followed by a snarl like that from the throat of a foul beast. At the same time, some instinct took over in Odyssean. Every muscle in his body tensed. The air rippled. A guttural exclamation filled the night, followed immediately by a crash. The tightness around Odyssean's throat vanished, along with it the insidious whispering. Suddenly, there was only the sound of him trying to catch his breath. That, and the soft padding of swift boots.
Odyssean,
Came a voice very familiar to him.
Odyssean, I thought I saw... Damn, I don't know what I saw.
But, despite that little obstacle, Achilleos had evidently managed a masterly shot. In the blackness, it could have just as easily been Odyssean whom he hit, and certainly that would have been a high probability had it been any other archer. However, Odyssean knew his childhood friend's skill well, and so understood that his life had never been in any danger, at least from an arrow.
Thank you,
He gasped. Achilleos, bow over his shoulder, helped Odyssean straighten.
Don't thank me for anything. I'm sorry I didn't manage to kill whatever had you. Though, I'm damned if I know why not. I had it, or him, where the back of the neck should have been. If it was an assassin, he should lie dead at our feet right now.
Making certain that Odyssean could stand on his own, the hunter knelt a moment later. Achilleos muttered,
There's something here, but it doesn't feel like blood. Not fresh anyway. Couldn't be from your attacker.
Recalling all too well the sort of friends that had been so far thrown against him, Odyssean was not so certain. For the moment, though, he would trust Achilleos' knowledge. Rising, the lithe figure rushed off in the direction of the crash. A minute later, Achilleos returned, what little was visible of his expression revealing his disgruntlement.
Something heavy struck that side of the building,
he said, gesturing at the darkness from which he had come.
Cracked it good. But whatever it was, got up right after and ran off.
That, too, did not surprise Odyssean. Malik would have sent servants far more capable than the previous ones. They had planned their little trap better this time. Waiting for him to venture out on his own, the high priest had read him well. He had known that his prey would eventually seek private time. Then, it occurred to him to wonder just what the archer was doing here too. Odyssean had long given up believing in coincidence. But before he could ask, Achilleos said,
I suggest we leave this area for somewhere a little more populated. You might enjoy your privacy, but surely not that much anymore.
With a nod, Odyssean followed his friend back the way they had come. Achilleos apparently could see in the dark much better than him. The hunter soon had them back in the vicinity of Master Ethan's house. Only then did both pause to breathe normally.
Much better,
commented the blond man.
Thank you again,
Odyssean returned.
Now, tell me how you happened to be right there when I needed your help.
Achilleos cocked his head.
And why did you need my help, Odyssean? What happened to you back there?
Odyssean would not let the questioning turn to him. Not just yet.
Answer me, Achilleos.
There was a long hesitation. Then,
I thought you were going to be in danger.
His phrasing left Odyssean puzzled.
What do you mean? I just had a feeling that something was going to happen, and so I followed a hunch. That's all. And managed to follow it all the way to where I was?
The archer shrugged.
It's nothing new. Just an instinct, Father would have said.
Achilleos' father had been a hunter like him, one whose reputation had never been dwarfed until his own son.
What makes me a good hunter, I guess.
But Odyssean was thinking that it was much more than merely an instinct. He refrained from saying anything, yet suspected that Achilleos had turned the very same gift that Odyssean carried into something honed to his particular talents. More to the point, it was possible that the archer's family had been doing so for at least 2 generations. That meant that there was more to the powers growing within them than even he had believed. Odyssean believed that he was likely not even the first to learn of the gift, merely the first to understand that it was something astonishing.
What was that thing back there?
Achilleos asked.
Did you see it?
Deciding not to pursue Achilleos' situation, for the time being at least, Odyssean replied.
A pet of the high priests, I'd say.
He considered further, then added,
It wore the guise of a man, I think. I also thought I felt armor. Well, my arrow didn't hit armor. I heard a healthy strike. It should have done more damage.
Odyssean did not care about that. He had something far more important on his mind. This attack, so deep within Partha, had made him determined to do something.
Achilleos, I have a favor to ask you. Promise me that you'll do it.
Not until I hear what it is, old friend. You know me better than that.
Then listen carefully, and think even more carefully. Achilleos, you're the only one I can trust to do this. I've decided that the others are only in danger here. I need you to lead them to somewhere far away from me. Will you do that?
When you say others, you mean specifically Lilia, I presume.
All of you. But, yes, I hope you can help her, obviously.
Achilleos glanced around to see if anyone was nearby. However, the streets were empty.
I understand why you would want Lilia, Sari, and Mendeln away from here. And you know that I most of all want Sari to be safe. Achilleos.
The hunter waved him to silence.
I can never be you in her eyes, but I live with that. Still, even though we agree that they shouldn't be here, and I understand you'd like me to be safe too,
naturally, he added with a chuckle.
I know that not one of them would agree to go. Not even your brother. They'd fight me, fight you, Odyssean. This isn't safe for any of you. You've the proof of that tonight. Aye, and telling them of it would just make them all that more stubborn, which I can't say I blame them for. You won't be getting rid of me, old friend. There's no way.
But there was one way, Odyssean thought. The worst way. Although he knew the futility of continuing the argument, Odyssean opened his mouth to try, only to shut it at the sound of hooves. Both men immediately tensed, Achilleos freeing his bow. However, the figure riding out to the black street turned out to be none other than Master Ethan. The merchant sighted the two men and reined his horse to a halt just before them.
Odyssean, Archer, what causes the pair of you to stand out here, looking so filled with distrust?
Achilleos grinned.
Just nerves, Master Ethan. Just nerves, that's all.
With a quick nod, the son of Diomedes agreed.
I needed a breath of air.
And I am not surprised about that.
The older man dismounted. Reins in one hand, he slapped Odyssean on the shoulder with the other.
Much you have done, Odyssean old Diomed. Much you have done.
He hesitated, then added,
And if there is anything I can do to be of service to you beyond what I already have, please, do not hesitate to come to me.
Odyssean felt embarrassment. Fortunately, Ethan unexpectedly turned his attention to Achilleos.
Have I told you what a fine bow that is, Archer? I have had my eye on it since I first saw it.
'Twas my father's, Master Ethan. He kept it as good as the day it was carved, and I've done my utmost to see it stays like that. Half a man's skill depends on the bow he wields.
Ah, so much you think. May I hold it?
The merchant asked, extending a hand.
By all means.
Achilleos let their host inspect the weapon. Ethan ran his fingers expertly over the finely crafted piece. Odyssean, who himself had admired and even fired the weapon several times over the years, saw it anew. Few there who could have surpassed the work of Tremos, Achilleos' father. But had Tremos' exceptional talent with carving also been some variation? After giving the bow a very thorough inspection, Master Ethan finally returned it to its owner.
Ah, a splendid piece, yes. I look forward to seeing it again in action.
His comment caused the other two to briefly exchange glances. The leader of Partha had no idea just what he was asking. Odyssean felt certain that the attack in the street had just been the very beginning of something far more sinister. Something that could engulf the entire town. Something that could very well destroy it and everyone within. The sheep poured out of the temple, unaware that they were one step closer to losing their souls, and more to Lucian. No, not to him, the Primus quickly thought, his pious expression hiding sudden concern. Rather, to the greater glory of his father and the other primevals. Yet, the son of Mephisto did not mind basking in the reflection of that glory. But for that to continue, for the eventual control of Sanctuary to happen, all had to proceed as Lucian had planned it. And recent events no longer guaranteed that such would happen. Matters had to be set properly back in place. For a demon, Lucian was a very orderly being. He liked things just so. The other two high priests, Herodias and Balthazar, came up to him and bowed respectfully. Generally, after the Primus had given a sermon to all three orders, he and his most loyal followers met in private to further discussion of the Triune's progress toward domination. Not this evening, however. Lucian had to focus on restoring the situation. While his servants were useful, when it came to the planning, he relied most on himself.
We will speak tomorrow eve, come the moon. Go and see to your duties.
Those duties included indoctrinating the faithful who had reached the point where they had begun to turn to the true doctrines of the temple: hate, destruction, and terror. The methods by which the Primus and his servants slowly manipulated the fools towards that end were many and ranged from the mundane to the magical. Some of the faithful were more attuned to this, the weak-minded ones, and they were carefully picked out of the throngs and invited to special sermons. There, a subtle shapings of the Primus's private sermons delved deep within the mortals' minds, seeking that which lay in the darkest recesses. But Lucian could rely on the two humans before him to handle such matters for a time. He dismissed them and hurried back to his private sanctum. It galled him that he had to do his work in secret, but some sacrifices had to be made, especially if she was indeed involved. Malik's efforts would make for a good distraction in that regard, causing her to be unaware of what Lucian also intended. The four guards snapped to attention as he passed them. They wore the semblances of peace warders, but wore Morlu. Anyone foolish enough to attempt entry without permission would quickly learn the difference, a moment before they were cut to pieces. Shadows filled the chamber, Lucian's work now more suited for the dark. He looked to where two more Morlus stood sentry over a cowering young man in the gray garb of a novice cleric. In the first part of their study, those chosen by the high priests did not wear the robes of any order, for it was by the Primus's decision which one they would best serve.
Icarian,
Lucian intoned. He wore his most kindly expression, which was lost on the youth in front of him, who knew who and what his master was.
Great is my lord,
Icarian stammered, going down on one knee.
Merciful is my lord.
This brought a chuckle from the Primus, who knew himself much better than the mortal obviously did. He reached down to the kneeling figure, stroking the chin of his chosen.
Dear Icarian, you know the sacrifices you make to take on the mantle of a cleric, do you not?
And I have accepted them gratefully.
Have you? Your sisters were to be brought to us, to be made our loyal handmaidens.
Lucian had a very earthy taste for human women, especially untried ones. It was a mark of how devoted his acolytes were that they willingly sold their own to prove their love for him.
But they appear to have left for a long journey.
Master,
The hand that had stroked the chin now painfully clamped the mouth shut. Still speaking in the same kindly tones, Lucian continued.
They did not travel far, though thanks to the very dedicated Brother Tomao, your good friend,
I had the pleasure of discussing their talents with them only last night.
Ah!
Ikarian made the mistake of trying to leap at his master. One of the Morlu drew his great axe and, in a single swift motion, removed the rebellious youth's head. The head tumbled into Lucien's hand. He turned it upside down to preserve the contents. The son of Mephisto preferred to do his own slaying, but could not fault the warrior for his enthusiasm.
Leave the carcass.
He commanded the Morlu.
You are dismissed.
The armored figures bowed and departed. Lucien paused, then glanced up at the deepest shadows above.
Astroga, I know you watch. I have a tidbit for you.
And at what cost?
Came a hissing voice.
What the cost, O Lucien?
Nothing you cannot afford, dog of Diablo. We shall speak of it later. Take the carcass.
Something white and like rope shot down to where the body lay. It resembled the webbing a spider might shoot, only much, much larger, as if a creature at least as great as the son of Mephisto somehow hid in the recesses of the ceiling. The headless body shot up, pulled by the webbing into the shadows. A moment later, there was a horrific slurping sound.
He has been bought.
Lucien thought to himself.
That leaves just one more.
With his free hand, the Primus drew a triangular symbol, not unlike that of the triune in the air. The pattern flared a savage crimson, then drifted to the floor, sealing there. Lucien tossed Ikarian's head into the center. It landed perfectly, the bulging eyes staring up, the mouth slack as if in mid-scream, blood puddled around it, in actuality feeding the burning symbol with power.
Gulag, I have something for you. Come and get it.
The stone floor beneath the head began to shift, as if suddenly liquid. The magical pattern remained intact, as did the stones beneath, but they rolled and twisted as if part of a turbulent sea. Then, a gap reminiscent of a whirlpool opened up just to the right of the pattern. Although it was circular within, one could see ridges of teeth. The mouth swirled around the pattern twice, then sought to engulf it. Dark sparks arose each time it attempted. At last, the toothy gap paused.
Stupid is Gulag.
Came Astraga's monstrous voice from above.
Like his master he is.
You have your treat, Arachnid. Be still.
Reprimanded Lucien. The demon above grew silent, save to renew the slurping that marked his eating. The macabre mouth attempted once more to take in the head, and once more the pattern kept it away.
Rise up, Gulag.
The floor began to swell. It took on a shape vaguely humanoid, vaguely porcine. Its body still maintained the stone design of the original floor, but approximately where the head should have been, 3 eye stalks suddenly spouted.
Lucien!
It said, the voice akin to the last gasp of a dying man.
Want!
And so you shall, servant of destruction, servant of Baal. But in a moment, you and Astraga must assist me with a spell. Will you?
Above, the slurping ceased again.
Expensive is this meal. This one thinks now.
Lucien's expression grew sharp. His eyes seemed to sink into the sockets, and he was suddenly half again as large as before.
You accepted it, Spider, just the same. A bargain made without thought is still a bargain.
So it must be.
The other demon replied reluctantly. Looking slightly more like the genial Primus again, the son of Mephisto focused on the second demon.
And you, Gulag, do you have any reservations about accepting what I offer, even before hearing the price?
Destruction?
He smiled at the simple question.
Yes, there could very well be some.
Head.
It was as close to an acquiescence as Lucian would get from one of Baal's minions. He gestured at the pattern, removing it. Gulag's mouth suddenly expanded to nearly his entire length. The skull of Brother Icarian tumbled into the bottomless maw, vanishing. The demon shut his mouth, then formed a crude smile out of the stone pattern. Lucian nodded. Steepling his fingers, he closed his eyes in thought.
Excellent. Now, this is what I seek from the two of you.